Pharaoh Akhenaten, King Tut's father, is one of the most infamous rulers in history. His radical religious reforms, his strange appearance, and his mysterious death have fascinated historians for centuries. And we probably don't need to tell you that he was married to the equally famous Queen Nefertiti. But who was Pharaoh Amenhotep III, the ruler whose legacy outshone even those of his heretical son and wife? Amenhotep III came to power in 1388 BC, after serving as regent for his father's last 3 years while he was incapacitated by illness. So he knew he had big shoes to fill. His father, the great warrior Thutmose III, had just kicked the bucket after a long and glorious reign, having successfully expanded Egypt's borders and crushed numerous rebellions both at home and abroad. And Amenhotep III would have known that he too was expected to be a great warrior king. But there was a problem. While Amenhotep III was certainly brave, he also really didn't want to go to war. His first recorded military action as pharaoh was leading an army into battle against the Nubian kingdom of Kush, which resulted in a humiliating defeat for the Egyptians. So maybe not exactly what his subjects were expecting from their new leader. Fortunately, Amenhotep III did possess some of his father's diplomatic skills, and after a few more military defeats, he managed to negotiate a peace treaty with Kush and secure the southern border of his empire. He then turned his attention northward and managed to reassert Egyptian dominance over the Levant after a campaign against the Hittites. But for the most part, Amenhotep III was a pacifist, and apart from putting down a few rebellions, he didn't engage in any major acts of aggression during his reign. In fact, he preferred to spend his time building massive building projects like temples and palaces and trading with the people of the Levant, whom he liked very much. In fact, he sent an embassy to the pharaoh's favorite city of Jerusalem to learn about its culture and customs, and they came back raving about it. He would later send another mission there to bring back craftsmen to work on the construction projects in Egypt. And he established a number of trading colonies along the coast of the Mediterranean. To facilitate this trade, he would mint coins bearing his likeness and inscriptions of the canopic jars of his divine forefathers, which could then be used as currency throughout his empire. He was also responsible for minting the first gold coins in history, and these would circulate throughout the ancient Near East. He also lavished gifts upon foreign dignitaries, including 40 talents of gold to the king of Babylon and 25 chariots of gold to the king of Mitanni. Even the Hittite king received 20 talents of gold from him. And the reason for such generosity was that Amenhotep III wanted to secure peaceful relations with neighboring kingdoms, and he was so successful at this that during his long reign of 36 years, not a single Egyptian soldier died on the battlefield. During his reign, Egypt reached the peak of its power and wealth. It was a time of peace and prosperity unmatched in the history of the region, sometimes referred to as the Pax Americana. But why wasn't he more enthusiastic about waging war? Well, for one thing, he really liked his wife, and he didn't want to die and leave her a widow. But more importantly, he believed that war was un-Egyptian and went against the tenets of Maat, the Egyptian concept of truth, justice, and cosmic order. In fact, he believed that Egypt's greatest strength lay in its ability to live in harmony with other nations, and he went out of his way to promote peace. For example, he brokered a treaty between the kingdom of Mitanni and the Kasca people, 2 warlike nations who had been at each other's throats for years. When the Kasca broke the treaty and attacked Mitanni, Amenhotep III simply sent them a strongly worded letter telling them to knock it off. And amazingly, they did. He also sent embassies to distant lands like Greece, but there's no evidence that any of them ever made it back to tell the tale, perhaps lost to the sea or eaten by wild men in the desert. Or perhaps that was the point. As far as we know, Amenhotep III never traveled outside of Egypt, unlike his successor, and he probably didn't want to risk being captured by those pesky Greeks or whoever else was out there. Speaking of his successor, Akhenaten originally served as the vizier or prime minister under his father before becoming pharaoh. But when Amenhotep III's only surviving legitimate heir died in childhood, Akhenaten was appointed to take the throne in his place. And although Amenhotep III had many children, he chose to designate his daughter, who he renamed Smenkhare, to be the next pharaoh after him. Perhaps he saw something special in her that we just don't understand. Maybe he knew she would follow in his footsteps and become a great builder and diplomat. Or maybe he just wanted to ensure a peaceful transition of power. After all, Egypt had been ruled by female pharaohs before, most notably Hatshepsut, who had done a great job. And Smenkhare would go on to rule as Neferneferuaten, having dumped her old name because it apparently meant something like, "A beautiful woman pleases the king," which was getting a bit tiresome. But Amenhotep III's peaceful reign did come to an end under rather mysterious circumstances. In 1353 BC, he fell ill and died around the 34th year of his reign. The circumstances surrounding his death are unknown, but there are two main theories. The first is that he was poisoned by his own wife, Queen Ti, in order to clear the way for their son Akhenaten to take the throne. There is no evidence to support this claim, and it likely originated from the fact that Queen Ti was conspicuously absent from the list of those who succeeded Amenhotep III. She would, however, go on to serve as regent for Akhenaten while he was still a child, which suggests that she was still very much in the good graces of the royal court. The other theory is that he was killed in a palace coup by his own daughter, who was being groomed to take the throne. Again, there's no evidence to support this theory, but it's possible that she acted out of fear that her father would choose a new wife and produce a legitimate heir who would then replace her in line of succession. Either way, it makes for a fun little conspiracy theory. So what did Amenhotep III do during his long life besides minting gold coins and making friends in the neighborhood? Well, for starters, he built a lot of stuff. Many of the buildings he constructed still stand today, like the mortuary temple of Amenhotep III at Deir el-Bahari, which is particularly impressive. Its construction was started by his father and completed by his wife, Ti, after his death. This temple was the largest of all of those built by the Theban kings and was designed as a place where Amenhotep III could relax and enjoy himself. It's almost like a theme park, with its huge colonnaded courtyard, artificial lake and gardens complete with fountains and statues of Amenhotep III in the form of a baboon. There was also the Temple of Amenhotep III at Karnak, which included a 21-meter-high obelisk, still standing, which is decorated with scenes of the king's victories. Unfortunately, most of it has been destroyed by later rulers who thought it was uncool. He also greatly expanded the palace complex at Malkata, which he shared with his father, as well as a number of other structures around the empire. Most famously, though, he built the Great Sphinx of Giza, which he had constructed in his own image, and although the statue has undergone some renovations since then, it still stands proudly on the Giza Plateau today. We hope you enjoyed learning about Amenhotep III. If you want to learn about more fascinating historical figures, stay tuned for more information.